Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LeanTossup College Football Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about some news, and we are going to preview the MAC. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, BuckMetrics. How are you doing tonight on this Thursday night?
I am feeling, I don't know if this is an adverb, literary. And by that I mean there's a novelist, American novelist named Nathaniel Hawthorne. I don't know if you're familiar with him. You're more educated than I am. He wrote, quote, "In America, families are either rising or falling." And I thought of that quote when I was doing the Mac preview because I didn't have anybody in my stuck in the lobby category. I have everybody moving up or down pretty decisively. I really couldn't say this is going to be the same. I think part of that is due to this conference just getting crushed by transfers. The average MAC team picked up 8 Ryan through the portal last season. So I think that basically is really exposing a lot of the innards of each team, and really just nobody's going to be in stasis, I guess, for lack of a better term, when you have so much turnover. So that's how I am.
Someone had to pick up those Colorado transfers.
Yep, exactly.
There's like all of them are in the MAC now. But yeah, no, it's the MAC is going to be interesting, and we'll get to the MAC very soon. But we have to talk at least a little bit about all of the news that has been breaking. We last recorded last week. I think it was. I think we actually recorded last Thursday. That was when we did the mayor. No, that's when we did the Big 12.
Big 12
with Nathan, and since then the Big 12 is bigger. It's a little bigger now, or well, it's about to be. I think we're hours away from it becoming bigger. I'm bad with conversion of Pacific to Eastern time, but at some point in the next couple of hours, we're doing this at 9:30 Eastern on Thursday. At some point, Arizona is going to vote. Arizona and Arizona State will both go to the Big 12. There are now rumors that somehow Washington and Oregon are now going to go to the Big 10. There was rumors of Cal and Stanford going to the Big 10, but those seem to have gone down a bit. Potentially Utah to the Big 12. Just the Pac is, I mean, again, so basically, since we talked last, the Big 12, the Pac-12 media deal was presented, I think, on like Monday or Tuesday of this week. I think it was like Tuesday, and we've not heard any of the details of it. And all we know is that immediately after people present the deal, literally everybody is trying to leave the conference. So that is not particularly good. I mean, we can't know what the deal specifically says, but I don't think it was a very good deal. I think they're not very happy with that deal. So my question for you right now, and is again, we are both math people here. We joked last time. Oh, we're talking about the Pac-9. What's the expected value of the Pac? Is it like Pac 4.5?
Yeah. My over under is 5.5, and boy, I think I'd have to shade it a little towards the under in terms of where the play is going to go. Things are disintegrating quickly here. It's I don't often like to engage these people, but in this case, within my own milieu, if you will, for years, USC people were thinking, is Larry Scott just an alien that was sent here just to destroy the Pac-12 and try to screw USC? And guess what? They were right. Somehow, the conspiracists got this one right. Larry Scott was just sent here to screw SC and kill the Pac-12. And I guess George K was basically somebody. I actually retweeted this. Somebody said George K's last name might actually be Kevorkian because he's just here to kind of, put an end to what's left of the Pac-12.
It is insane how poorly this has been managed. And that now I feel there is a little bit of bad luck here because I feel like they tried to get a new media deal the second ESPN started cutting costs. So that's a little unfortunate. But that being said, though, you should have seen the writing on like the second Texas and Oklahoma left for the SEC. You should have immediately realized, okay, things are changing. We are not a top conference. And you should have immediately said, okay, what would be the equivalent of Texas and Oklahoma leaving our conference? And you should have immediately circled USC and probably UCLA and said, oh, shoot, if they leave, we're going to be unstable. Like, the thing is, and people are now crediting Brett Yormark, and he seems to have outmaneuvered everybody by mostly doing nothing. Honestly, he just kind of sat around for a while added a
Yeah.
couple of teams, and then some other people said like we want to join. Like he honestly he added some AAC teams, and then other people were like, please let us in. Like that's literally he did not much. Like there was not like it wasn't like people were like, oh, it's this masterful plan. And I mean, he did a good job, but like this wasn't like some sort of Machiavellian strategy. He mostly just did nothing and then just let the pack implode. And it
Yeah.
is
Well,
great. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I think with your background in politics, I think what is rule one when your opponent is just destroying himself, don't stop him. Isn't there
Yeah, that's
some
that's one of the
that
rules
one
of
of the
politics is
rules?
that
Yeah.
when your opponent is destroying themselves, don't stop them.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the strategy. It's like, wow, look at these guys imploding. What am I going to do?
I mean,
Run there and put an end to this?
on one hand, like I don't like the argument for that would be like that. Oh, you're gonna like stir up like pro pack sentiment, but all these people like mostly hated each other anyways. So like it wasn't like we're like yeah we're
Yeah.
fiercely loyal to this brand that is mostly not been particularly good for us. But yeah, we are now going to be down to four. I mean, the scraps are going to do something. I'm not sure if it's going to be Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, Stanford. That seems to be all that's left. Those four. They're going to do something. I don't know. Maybe they're going to go independent. Maybe they're going to merge with the Mountain West, which is functionally the same thing as being independent. Um, yeah, it was weird rumors of like Stanford to the Big Ten, which would have been really cool to see Stanford Iowa every year, but we've been robbed of that apparently. So, but what I don't know. What are your like? So, is this? Do you think this is it for now? Like, okay, after the dust settles here with the pack, do you think that's it, or do you think there's going to be anything more coming in the next 12 months here? Because apparently we've just decided we're going to get everything done before 2024.
Yeah, I think that this wave is going to be basically involve everybody in the pack that can move. And the thing is, at some point, you're going to get to a point where, well, whoever's left, they're going to own 1/6 of, a brand that has some value, not in comparison to bigger brothers, but compared to the Mountain West, it does. So, they have a bigger share of something that has value compared to, teams that want to join them. So they'll have leverage. They can probably grow and get a bigger chunk of that alleged reported 20 to 25 million per team. By admitting new teams, on the other hand, how excited are they to be streamed for all their games?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They need to hit Control Alt Delete on basically all the leadership. I don't know. As you said, just completely mishandled. I can't imagine this is a plan, but we are where we are.
Step one: our top two brands are going to leave. Don't just wait to step 50. It's going to be great. Like that. Like
yeah,
it's nuts. Like this is, but again, this is what this is now. The college football is very cutthroat, and again, there's supposed to be a president of college football, Charlie Baker, and he's just like, there's no comment on any of this. Just like, this is fine. I don't control any of this. I'm just the president of this. I have no impact in this. I love how there's no laws or rules governing any of this. It's great.
No,
but yeah. Anyways, moving on to the opposite of conference realignment, the MAC. What are honestly one of our favorite conferences? They started MACtion, which was weeknight games, and that has been so popular now that other conferences are trying to pick that up, which is a huge thing. I love that. That's a very positive step forward for this. So yeah, let's talk about this. So, do you want to go first, or do I want to go first for our most interesting teams for the MAC?
I'll be greedy and I'll go first here.
Okay.
My most fascinating team in the MAC, just to keep it completely on brand, is they went 2-10 last season. That would be the Zips of Akron. That was their first season under Joe Moorhead, who they got prior was at Oregon as the offensive coordinator. And on offense, they really showed no improvement from the prior year. They went from a negative 5.0 to a negative 5.2. Their running game was horrible last season. It was actually 5th worst in FBS. And the QB production fell from a team apex of 89 to a team apex of 82 last season. On defense, their defensive rating was a negative 4.3. That actually was a big improvement from the prior year. They were at 11.1 or 11.9 the prior year, so they improved by over 7 points. defensively, their defensive apex was 114th in FBS, so they really had some problems against the pass, big picture. So why do I find them a fascinating team? Well, Moorhead took over a program that was 2-27 versus FBS the prior 3 seasons. And even though year to year there wasn't improvement in the metrics, within the season there was an enormous improvement. After week 4, I had their offensive rating as a negative 10.8. And by the end of the season, it was a negative 5.2. So just within those last 8 weeks of the season, they improved by 5.6, which is enormous, especially for a first-year coach. So, going back to what I like to see from a new coach, I see definite proof of concept on his side of the ball. I love that. The running game, like I said, was horrible, but it was expected. They had a new head coach. The prior head coach was awful on offense. They had zero continuity on the offensive line, so it figured that they were going to struggle to run the ball. What I really love here, in addition to the head coach, is quarterback DJ Irons. I mentioned that their team apex actually took a hit in 22 versus 21. That was dragged down by his injury and absence in early November. His apex from 22 or 21 to 22 actually increased from a 50 to a 90, which is enormous. And I think that's obviously just, having Joe Moorhead there. Last season, if you get a little more specific, his apex against MAC teams, if I threw out the game when he got injured, he was actually the 4th best quarterback in the MAC. So he's right there. And this is what I love, is like this sneaky improvement that's clearly not evident to everybody. He's only had 13 career starts, and 5 of those starts, he's had an apex of 118 or better. So he's got the ceiling. Knew he's going to have those bad games. But we've seen just in 13 career starts at a MAC school, that's the potential is absolutely there. And he's had 4 games where he's running for 50 or more yards too. The defensive improvement was huge last season. It was totally unexpected. Going into last season, only Central Michigan basically had less experience and a lower projected improvement metric. I mentioned that they had a really bad pass defense, but really that was a function of just the absolute best passing teams that they faced. Michigan State, Tennessee, Ohio, Eastern Michigan. That completely skews their stats versus your typical MAC passing attack. And this is not really a good passing conference except for a couple teams. They were actually pretty good. They're definitely respectable. They had 2.3 games of bad luck last season by BuckMetrics measure, and K Ford shows them improving by 1.4 games. From a schedule standpoint, they avoid Toledo from the West, which is enormous because Toledo's, kind of pretty clearly the preseason conference favorite. I really love that if you look at the standings from last season, you've got the top 2, Ohio and Miami. Then you've got these 3 teams, Buffalo, Kent State, and Bowling Green. And those 3 teams are so easily passable. That's just real estate. I can see them making up really, really quickly. I expect that they will easily be better than all 3 of those teams. So the improvement is just there to be had. The win totals are either 3.5 or 4. The over on 3.5 is minus 140, and you get even on the 4. I'm definitely going over here. I love this team. Like I said, I think they'll be in the upper half of their division by season end. I'm thinking they'll probably have like a top 3 quarterback in the conference by season end. And I've got my eye on their September 23rd game at Indiana. Indiana is kind of in a death spiral, and I already have, just based on last year's raw numbers, I have Akron just rated about the same from a strength standpoint. Indiana, you've got a trajectory up here. You've got Indiana trajectory going down. This team is going to be so much fun to watch. I'm definitely taking the over their win total, and this is going to be an offense that I'm going to love watching.
Yeah, what is their? Let me call up their win total quickly. But no, I actually completely agree with you on this. I really like this team. Let's see, is it on Bet365?
3.5 or 4, depending on your shop. Yeah, so the over's like you're laying a lot, right?
Yeah, minus 160. That's not great. Let me see, maybe a better price at a different book somewhere. But no, I actually completely agree with you. I'm really interested. I'm intrigued by this team. This was near the end of last season. This was one of our favorite teams to talk about. We love this team. We love this team a lot in many in many ways. Like we always were like, oh, this team is good. Like Akron, we love playing Akron against the spread. We did that a
Yep.
ton of times. I remember that. I definitely remember that. So so no, I absolutely love this team. I think this team is fascinating. Again, this was team was what I think 2-10 last year. But
Two
even
and
in those
ten. Yeah.
even in those 10 losses, a lot of close ones. Last second loss um, to Buffalo. And I remember last year I had them like, and you could get like there is throughout basically all of last year, you could have them at like massive spreads. Like you're like, oh, Akron plus 28.5, and you're like, okay, well I've got them like one score dogs. I've got them like 7 point dogs, and like they're like you bet them like I bet them spread and money line, and then like okay, I lost the money line bet sometimes. I think I sometimes won them, but like I never felt bad about that. I'm like because again, as I assess, I think we talked about this. I'm not sure if I talked about this in another podcast or not, but in terms of some people are like, oh, it's a bad break, bad beat, you lost that or you lost that. I assess the bet as like when watching the game, did I think I had a chance to like? Would I rather have had the other ticket? And again, you have to
That's
assess
yep.
that for price, right? If you're like, I got
Yep.
this Akron ticket like 8-1, and like they were leading for 3 quarters, then like yeah, that was a great bet. That's perfect. That's exactly what you and like it's like oh they were leading for 3 quarters, then they lost, and then there was like a pick six or something, and they lost by 14. I'm like, nah, that's fine. That's totally fine. Not concerned about that at all, right? So, but no, Akron is a team like again, and this is the thing, right? We talk about a good head coach. I actually do like Joe Moorhead, but the thing is though, again, and when you sometimes when coaches go to other schools they say, "Oh, the cabinet is bare." This is Akron. The cabinet there was barely a cabinet there.
Yep.
There wasn't even a cabinet, right? And again, the
Yeah.
fact that he's already been able to build it back up just in basically a season and even through the back end of the season, give him even more time. I think this team is going to be a very good team in the MAC, and they're going to be here to compete for many more years, I think. So, yeah, I love Akron.
Yep.
I think they could definitely surprise a lot of people this year, just like they were doing at the end of last year. I'm gonna love. We're gonna love talking about Akron this year for sure.
All right, we agree
Okay.
on that. You
Yes.
got Ohio.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ohio. We've got so this is actually a really good team last year, and they actually have a really half decent schedule this year. So I have this team as stairs up again. A large part of the reason for that is Curtis Rourke. I think he's returning. He's like I think one of the oldest starters in college football, if I remember correctly. He's up there. He's one of the older starters in all of college football. Let me just find the schedule. Like I was reading through the schedule for Ohio, and like it's very easy schedule. You've got San Diego State; they can beat them. Long Island, I don't even know what that is, so that's fine. Well, I mean, okay, I know what Long Island is, but I never even knew they had a university, so that's fine. Florida Atlantic, okay, that could be a little iffy. Iowa State, okay, but Bowling Green, Kent State, Northern Illinois, Western Michigan, Miami, Ohio, Buffalo, Central Michigan, and Akron. Like this team could easily be 10-2, and they were 10-4 last year, right? They were
Mm-hmm.
9-3 in the. I think, or no, I think they lost in. I think they lost in the playoff game. I think
They did
in the
in the
yeah in
conference
the
championship
conference
game. Yeah.
championship game. So no, I think this team could be very very good. I think this could be a very very good team. They're basically keeping a lot of the pieces from last year, including their quarterback, who was actually pretty good. I like watch out for this team. Like they kept most of the offense, the defense improved. I think this could be a team we like. Again, if they beat San Diego State, maybe if they win against Florida Atlantic, but again that'll be a couple weeks in. If they take out Florida Atlantic and or Iowa State, or like if they beat those two, we're gonna be talking about them going to New York Six Bowl. They're gonna end up playing against like some SEC team that had a disappointing season. Then they could like beat them in the New York Six Bowl. So be like
Mm-hmm.
watch out for this team. This team could actually be very very good this year.
I agree, and I don't know. We're gonna disagree at some point here, but not on the first two teams.
Mm-hmm.
Some things I want to point out. This is the third season under Tim Albin, but it's really the second season because remember Frank Solich retired just before the 21 season started. So odd way to start, and you kind of saw how in the second, in a similar situation at Kansas, how that first season just was kind of just like a do over at Kansas. Same situation for Lance Leipold. So,
Mm-hmm.
Rourke is by far the best quarterback that I have by Apex in the conference. This is nuts. The Ryan that they retained from last season is 600 more than Toledo, who's second in the MAC. So You've got the passing game that is literally just far ahead of the rest of the conference. And then additionally, only 2 offensive lines in the whole MAC project for significant improvement based on my returning talent and experience metrics. And this is one of them. So literally everything on offense, the trajectory is just, bottom left, upper right. I love it. The defense was weak last season, but after the Akron game, this is what's interesting. If after week 6, so week 7 through the end, I actually had their defense as a plus 1.3, which would rank 3rd in the MAC. So I think that they've kind of figured out what they were struggling with on defense. What's interesting too is I think that, and here's just a confession here. In my notes, I have SDSU -4, and I don't know if that means that SDSU is favored by 4 or if I mean that Ohio is favored. But, that's close for a team that gets a lot of pub, though you and I have kind of crapped on here on the pod. But this is what's really interesting. Number one, that's a close game. This is what is really fascinating to me. The total on that game that I saw is 50.5, which tells me, and again, SDSU is not a great offensive team. That again tells me, though, that Ohio's kind of fixed their defensive problems that were a problem for, the first half of last season. So like you, I think they have a path to a New Year's Six bowl bid. They missed Toledo from the West. Their total that I saw, and maybe you've got a different number, 7.5. And, basically that whole conference schedule that you read through, I can see them being favored in every game. It's the 3 non-conferences that are outside of Long Island. That could get a little tricky. So maybe that 7.5, that just tells me the market thinks that they're going to lose all 3 against SDSU, FAU, and Iowa State. I think that the bet here, I don't know if I want those 7.5. I don't want to be out of it just if the things don't go right against the big 3 pre-conference games. Plus 280 to win the MAC was the latest price that I saw. That sounds like an absolute gift, depending on what you think about Toledo. So I think that's the play I'm going to make here on Ohio. Does that sound generous to you, or does that seem fair?
Yeah. So a couple notes on that. So you hit on a couple things. So one, on my book at least, they're 3.5 point dogs to San Diego State.
Okay.
And I think that's at San Diego State, I think.
It is at San Diego State, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, that's almost neutral. That's almost a toss-up on a neutral field.
And again, we've been very... Like, the thing is, again, people are really high on San Diego State. People want them in the pack. I'm like, I don't think they're that good.
Mm-hmm.
And this is... Yeah, that's a very interesting number there for that. And I think that I'm taking Ohio there. And I think I'm not that worried about the 7.5 because I feel like, again, you take out San Diego State, I think you get the 7.5, right? Like, something weird's going to happen, maybe against Akron or, oh God, all these are like even Northern Illinois isn't even that great. But like maybe like honestly, if you win San Diego State, you probably like that's basically the over, I think.
Yeah.
And like Iowa State currently don't have a quarterback because their current quarterback is being accused of gambling on Iowa State games. Hunter Deckers, right?
Although, in the Big 12 preview, we said that probably is going to be a good sign. Because that guy was so bad last year.
That is true, yeah. But, like, that's a concern for Iowa State. Now, Florida Atlantic,
yep,
that could be an interesting game. That's a couple weeks in, though. And then they get the warm-up game against Long Island after that. So, I think this could be very interesting. I think this is not done yet. Like I think that this team could definitely be competitive in the MAC. And again, the MAC is an interesting one where you're like, oh, here's the conference championship game between 2 teams that are 7-6, and you're like, but how? But it's all because of their out of conference schedule. And I think Ohio has learned. They're like, hey, let's not schedule Ohio State. Let's schedule Long Island. That sounds like a great plan. And yeah, so. I like this. I think they can actually do something here this year, and I think they could definitely be one of the best teams in the MAC. And I'm excited to see I'm excited to watch that game with them against San Diego State. I think they could win that. They could definitely win that game. I'm gonna pull the trigger on that one in a couple weeks for sure.
Yeah, you think that's a coaching mismatch there between those two?
Tom Herman.
He said sarcastically. No, SDSU.
SDSU.
Tim Alvin Yeah, dopey Brady Hoke.
Yeah, I'll take the Ohio coach over that. Yeah. over San Diego State for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Okay, you're up
All right.
next.
Team that I don't think has its act. No, I'm going to throw this to you. We're going to kind of go all over the place here. For some reason, you wanted to go with Bowling Green, who's not really a splitting image of Ohio, unless you feel differently than I do.
Yeah, so this is I think you said off the top of the pod. I don't really have any teams in the lobby. I actually do kind of have Bowling Green in the
Mm-hmm.
lobby. Um, the
Wow.
thing is,
Okay.
yeah. So the thing is, on one hand, yeah, okay, you get Connor Bazelak from I believe it was Missouri. Yeah, it was Missouri last year. So that's not the greatest. Or no, Bazelak was not. No, that was Indiana. Sorry, not Missouri. That
Is it
was
Indiana? Yeah.
it was Indiana last year. They got him from Missouri the year before. So this is now his
From
third team.
Missouri. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is I'm not the most hopeful. Like it's not bad. I mean, in terms of MAC quality quarterbacks, that's about the best you're gonna get. But I'm not the biggest fan of that. Again, if you look at this team, basically this team like let me find if you read off the records of this team in the last couple of years, you really just kind of see this decline. So in 2020 they basically went they basically like in 20 they went 0 and 5. Then they went 4 and 8, 6 and 7, before then a couple of 3 and 9s, and this is all under the same head coach. I kind of feel like this is that the head coach gets fired season. You're trying to bring in a quarterback to try to save your job. It doesn't work. I just think this team is kind of very middling, and it's Bowling Green has not been the pillar of excellence for a while here in the MAC. And I think this is probably the coach gets fired season. This team has not been able to capture wins very well, and they've been a couple of upsets. They've been involved in a couple upsets, I think. But honestly, I'm not impressed with the quality of this team at this point. I think honestly this is the coach gets fired season. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think he's in trouble because they did they did make a bowl bid. Now it didn't go so well in the bowl. They lost to my guy Jerry Kill. So I don't think he's in trouble. But I feel really strongly that this is an elevator down team. They get Bazelak. I look at what the prior quarterback did. His apex went from 34 to 77 to 82. So, 3 years with this guy and they couldn't get more of an 82. Maybe that's because they couldn't recruit better, but that's a different thing. Bazelak's apex was a 43 at Indiana. So I don't really see, I don't think he'll be a 43 at this level, but I don't see this guy, being anything more than at best an average MAC quarterback. Their defense is average too. Why I think their elevator down is they were extremely lucky, even though the coach Loeffler is one of the few bad luck isn't always luck coaches. Like he just kind of brings bad luck with him. But somehow they had 2 games of good luck last season,
Mm.
which, I'm thinking this has to revert. And more to that point, I dug a little bit deeper on my luck metrics and how that relates to quarterback play. So last season, there were 27 teams with statistically significant good luck. Of those 27 teams, the average apex quarterback was 113. 16 of the 27 at apex of 107.2. Matt McDonald's apex was 82 last season. So what that tells me is this wasn't manufactured luck. USC, for example, was really lucky, but they had a great quarterback. A lot of these teams with luck, it's just a result of having a great quarterback and who can really execute, in the late moments. Nor was it by design. This is just truly like the luckiest of lucky teams that we saw last season. So I'm projecting just two games worse just right off the top because of that. K Ford, he's projecting 1.7 games worse. And when those two factors meet, it gets really scary. I'm expecting not just regression, but violent, dizzying regression from last season. The total is 5 that I saw, and the unders at giving 135. I can't see him covering that. I've got him favored in 2 games, and in 2 or 3 others, I've got them as a field goal or less dog. That means that basically 7 games, I've got them basically as a dog of, more than a field goal. So they've got to win the two that they're favored. They've got to pull off, two or three minor upsets and then one major upset to beat you there. I can't see it. Loeffler just, he doesn't do it for me. So,
Yeah.
sounds like we disagree. If you've got him in the lobby, then I don't know how you
Well,
get to 6 though.
yeah, lobby-ish. I mean, I probably should have said down, but like, when I was saying lobby, I was kind of like, this is their like. The thing is, it's hard to like. They get a quarterback that was in the SEC and in the Big Ten, so it's hard to say they're gonna suck.
Yep.
And again, they were only 6-6, right? So it's not like this team was laying the world on fire, right? It's hard. Like, I mean, I guess you can go down a lot, and this is another thing that's a bit challenging for this conference too, right? Because like you've got like, oh, this team was like 6-6, and they were like one of the better teams in the MAC, right? It's like, well, the record doesn't like when you say stare up, stare down. Generally, how I feel it is win-loss record, right? Now I lobby like so what? Like this is the thing, right? Okay, say they're 6-6. If they win 4 games, was that really elevator down? Like, okay, maybe you can argue stairs down, but like there's an argument that that's kind of lobby, right? So yeah, we'll see. But no, I agree. We're kind of low on this team this year, and I think we're gonna be betting a lot against them on some spreads. I think.
True. Yes. It's weird. Just a lot of that. To your point, the severity of the tough out of conference games is such a big determining factor in the just overall record regular season. You really have to discard it. Just disregard it. Just look in the conference.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I'll go next with Miami, Ohio. They went 6-7 last season. I have them as an elevator up team. Largely for the same reason that I actually had them last season to win the MAC. You might remember that. I was very excited about this team.
Mm-hmm.
Problem was their awesome quarterback, Brett Gabbert, got injured in the 4th game of last season. He was out for the rest of the year. It was really tough because he was coming off a season where his apex was 136, and his replacement last season had an apex of 58. So the offense is going to completely, take a huge step forward this season. Defensively, they were a little bit below average last season, but they project to have, huge improvement. Only Central Michigan projects to have better improvement on the defensive side of the ball. The big thing is you can't overstate the impact of a healthy Gabbert this season. The question is, will it be enough to catch Ohio in the East? I don't think so. Their total is 7 wins. That seems about right. And it's weird that that's only a half a game off of Ohio. Although, as we just said, the non-conference schedule really skews everything. So they're definitely going to be improved. It's just a matter of, how much does the return of the quarterback move them up off of 6-7?
Yeah, they're out of conference schedule. They have Miami, Florida. I feel like they're not going to screw that one up. I feel like they have the Battle of Miami's. I feel like they have to win that one. Massachusetts, okay, that's pretty easy. Cincinnati, that could be a bit of a trip up. Delaware State, I think they're one of the better, or maybe they're better at college basketball. I can't remember, but that's not. I don't know. They'll win that game, but maybe not the easiest. Kent State, Bowling Green, Western Michigan, Toledo, Ohio. So they get Toledo and Ohio. Akron, Buffalo, Ball State. So I think they're. It's Miami. The Miami, Ohio's over 6.5 minus 170. Under 6.5 plus 140. There's some value on that under. Do you think there's some value on the under 6.5?
I don't know. There's they get a really rough drawing conference. That's the thing. I mean, and they get Toledo and Ohio in back-to-back weeks too.
And there's Akron.
And then after that, right after that too. Yeah, that's exactly the term. The sneaky, okay, total letdown spot. Unless Akron's really just kind of grab the headlines at that point, which I don't think they're going to be that good this year. The schedule does them no favors. So this might be that classic better team, but not reflected in the record. You said it was 6.5?
6.5, but plus 140 to the under.
Yeah. Boy, that could be tough. I think the under. I wouldn't play it, but that seems like the play there.
I think so too. All right. Next up, I guess Which one should I do? Which one should I do next?
All right. Why don't you do Northern Illinois?
Northern Illinois. Okay, so I have this team's elevator up actually. Um, they should improve back to their 21 form because 21 they were, I believe, the conference champions in 21. They got very, very unlucky last year. I distinctly remember betting them against Kentucky. That was another one where we both were like, "Hey, we've got this weird thing where we don't think Kentucky's gonna have a problem against this Northern Illinois team." And I said that, I'm like, "That's clearly wrong." And then you also said, "Hey, I also have this," and I'm like, "Okay." And then, sure enough,
Huh?
in the final score was, let me find it here. 23-31, a grand total of 8 points. They beat them by 8 points when the spread was 26 points. So that's not great. Again, but the thing is, there was a couple of unlucky bounces in that game that literally cost them that game. I think the money line was like 12-1 or something in that game. Like, they should not have been competitive in that game at all. The fact that they lost it by 8 is like, well, Kentucky didn't have a great year last year, and that's one of the things on it. But again, like, reading through this schedule. At Ohio, they were 3-point favorites. They lost by 7. Central Michigan, 6-point favorites. They lost by 13. Miami of Ohio favorites. They were 1-point favorite. They got blown out there. Akron, they were 10-point favorites. Akron blew them out as well. Tulsa, they lost by 3, so they were close in that game. Again, we talked about Kentucky. Vanderbilt, they were favored by 2. They lost by 10. So the lines were kind of off again for this team last year. But at the same time, I kind of think this team got a little bit unlucky in some of those games. I think they were kind of better than their record showed. Their record at the end of the year was 3-9. But again, like the year before that, 9-5. And then we could kind of ignore the COVID year where they were 0-6. But this is generally one of the better performing MAC teams. And I think they're going to get back to that form this year. I think they keep their quarterback. So that's always a plus. I think everything else is pretty much the same or slightly improved from last year. And I think this could be a team to watch out for in the MAC in the West.
I agree. I agree. Rocky Lombardi, who was really bad at Michigan State, totally found a home here. He was injured. He only started 3 games last season. He had an apex of 135 in 3 starts, which just is unimaginable considering how bad he was at Michigan State. But he's thriving at this level. The problem was his backups, plural, had a combined apex of 39. So that just completely did in whatever chance they would have had last season. They actually had the best GGAB ground game above Boston College in the entire MAC. And they have the most experienced offensive line this year. So the running game should be really good. And interestingly, Tom Hammock, the head coach, actually played running back here. So like to see that when the head coach's specialty excels. The defense was horrible. I'm not really projecting any improvement. In fact, they have the worst improvement metric aside from Western Michigan. To your point, my metrics actually kind of confirm what your eyes saw. They actually had 2.6 games of bad luck last season. What's really weird too is the year before that, they were the ultimate good luck team, where they actually won the conference, even though they had I think they had a negative point differential.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Season. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. And the season before that, in the COVID year, they were actually one of the least unlucky. So they've got this weird thing where they can't really have a normal season. So even if they just regress to something normal and even if the defense still stinks, I think with regression and just the return of a healthy Lombardi, I think that, the total is 6 to 6.5. That feels right. If anything, they could go over just because I think there's a proof of concept here on one side of the ball, which a lot of these teams really, really lack. So I think we're of the same mind here. I definitely have them stairs up.
So week 1, not week 0, week 1 at Boston College. Maybe winnable. Maybe.
That's interesting.
Southern Illinois, which is a D2 team, at Nebraska. Okay, Mount Rule will not have that. Tulsa, okay. Toledo, Akron, Ohio. Why does it say HC?
Homecoming.
Homecoming, okay. Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, Ball State, Western Michigan, Kent State. So, yeah, I don't like Nebraska. I'm not the biggest fan of Tulsa. Boston College is maybe beatable, maybe. But then again, you got Toledo, Akron, Ohio. Those are three teams that we're not the like that plus Nebraska plus Tulsa. That's already up to 5.
Yeah.
And then again, you're just like anyone. I think it'll be better than last year. Maybe this team makes a bowl, but they're going to need some help to make a bowl. I think they're going to need an upset or two somewhere. And again, like a lot of these MAC games, one of the reasons why it's called MACtion, anything happens in some of these MAC games, right? It's like anything happens and a billion points are scored. So they're fun. But if you're stressing about like they need to win this game or like they need to win this game because they need to win this game for a win total, that's not fun. Just enjoy MACtion, enjoy the flow of it. You just enjoy it. It's a fun weeknight activity. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I might talk myself into just a super small play here, just because if I do go a little more global here, let me pull up my my kind of metrics here. If I'm just going to say globally, what squads have an identity? Ohio offense, Akron offense, Toledo defense, Ball State defense, Northern Illinois offense. That's how I was kind of thinking. There's like 5 squads out of a potential 24 that actually have an identity that you can kind of hang your hat on them, that unit doing something this season. I think that probably gets them over. I don't see them really pulling off upsets that you said concerned you, but I think that they're probably going to handle just the rest kind of with more ease than maybe you're imagining.
Maybe.
I don't know if it's worth it to play it over, but I can. It's a better bet than some of these other ones. When we talk about another team here, about kind of like the corollary to your mushy middle theory that we talked about earlier.
5.5 minus 140. That's not bad. I could see them getting a 6. I don't love the minus 140 though. If that was plus 140, I'd be all over it. But I'm not the biggest fan of minus 140 though. But
yeah. I didn't run the through that, but I think I will. So
maybe we'll do a podcast at the. Actually, well, quickly jump in here. Maybe we'll do a podcast at the end and say all the win totals we like before week 0.
Yeah,
I think we'll
definitely.
do that. Yeah, our best bets.
Yeah, like 1 or 2 minutes on each team. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.